This was my staging for the layout. Had 4 tracks, just raw, rough, no finish to it. And I decided I wanted to make it a couple of more tracks, and I wanted to finish it off so it looked like something. So the first thing I did was painted the cork, and what happened was the paint turned the cork into the Rocky Mountains. And I decided that I probably should just tear it up, and which turned out to be a bigger issue than I thought. But you can tell looking at this photo and this photo that I really didn't do that good a job with the glue when I put it down, because I had no intention of painting it. So anyway, I've got it scraped off here, cleaned off. And I took some sandpaper, rough sandpaper, and see if I could get the cork out of the glue, and that was too big a pain. So I just flipped the OSB over on it to the other side, took the screws out, flipped it over, screwed it back down again. Then I added a 1x clear lumber to get a little more width. And you can see back there, I've got some wood glue and some more cork to lay down. This time I took the glue and just basically poured it out and then spread it all around with a putty knife, and then took everything I had that had weight to it and set it on it to try. You can see down, if I can move my right here where it's squishing out. So I got plenty of glue under it this time. And then here I give it a coat of paint. For the most part, it stayed put. I decided that I wanted to paint. Let me back up one. Yeah, see, I painted sky blue color underneath the shelving, because I wanted to put a little bit of a horizon line on there. So anyway, I'm mixing up some colors to do a distant horizon, some grays and some avocado, which says fancy stuff. Anyway, I just mix it together on a piece of cardboard, painted it on. Here's what that looks like. I could have went probably twice as high. It might, if I had more height, I think I would have gone twice as high with that far horizon. Then I decided to put a little closer horizon. And these are some colors I dug out. If I figure if you don't have at least 150 of these little cans, 50-cent cans of paint, you're not in the right area. Anyway, so I put some green on it over the top of that kind of a greenish gray color that I had put on first. And then I decided that I would try my hand at putting on some trees and bushes and maybe a farm or two. And I wrote, about this, that no one was ever going to call me Clark Ross. Well, that just invites criticism. And you end up with stuff like this on the internet. Okay. But anyway, a couple of photos here of my scratching on the backdrop. These aren't very tall. These things are only half-inch high at the most, so that you really can't get too precise. And then this is what that looks like when I've got all that stuff on the backdrop painted on there. It gives it a little bit of distance and kind of breaks up the vertical. Something anybody can do. You don't have to put the trees on there. If you just paint a couple of stripes of a gray, green, and then a green, that's good enough for a backdrop. You don't need to get super fancy. You just want something to extend the scene. So anyway, here I'm starting to lay track. And one of the turnouts that I have a bunch of Pico track that was left over from my last layout. And I ended up breaking one of the turnouts. So I'm trying to lay it out here with where I would have 5 tracks, and I'm seeing that I have enough width now. I could add a 6th one. So I ended up buying another turnout and get 6 tracks laid down. Then I decided it's time to ballast them. So that coffee can is about 2/3 full of ballast. And I've got wood glue and wet water there and a salt shaker. So my first attempt was just to take the full strength glue and paint it out and then sprinkle on the ballast over that.
16.
Somebody's iPad is talking to them. Anyway, that didn't work out that well. So I squirted some more glue down, and this time I took that water in the fine mist and went over the top of it. And that worked a lot better, but I found that worked best was to put the glue down or put water down first, then put the glue on top of it. I don't know what the difference was, but it seemed to cover a little bit better doing it that way. So anyway, here it is with all that ballast that was in that coffee can is practically used up. So next, there's some of it that's loose that didn't stick down. So I'm just brushing that onto the track because I'm going to come back and go over the rails next, or the ties. And here I've just piled it up on the ties, brushed it along some, and then I'm going to use that fine mist bottle with wet water in it and spray everything. And then I'm going to take diluted glue, probably 50-50 water and Elmer's with a little bit of alcohol in it, and just drizzle that over the top of everything. And it looks something like this when that's drying. And now it's time that when I drive myself nuts, I have to wait for the stuff to dry. I dug out some ground foam. I wasn't anticipating putting static grass on this. And you'll notice that there's a can there that says Super Turf. And somebody gave me that, and I could see why. I don't like it at all. But I thought I might as well use it up. So here I'm going to fix this stuff down with hairspray. I'm using an old-time card from work to kind of protect the backdrop from getting spray on it. And then here I've laid down some of that tough stuff that's really kind of a coarse. Maybe use a different color. It might look a little better. And then here I've taken ground foam, both what they call ground cover, I think, and coarse in different shades, and sprinkle that on over the top of it, try and make it look a little better. Here's one, the bad problem with a yard or anything where you end up with this triangle of open space. On Jason Clocky's layout, we cut that out and sunk it down and put a piece of masonite on there where you could use to set all of your gear, car cards, picks, drinks, proto throttles. But on this one, if I didn't have those shelves in the back, I would have just brought the backdrop up to within a few inches of the track and just not bothered with that back there. But it gives it a little bit of color, a little texture. So basically, this is what that looks like when it's dry. Got this stuff along the back. Now, before you can use it, I got to clean all the ballast off the track. So I just run a blade of a screwdriver on the inner web of the rail. This rail is code 70. And then I took a brush and went over to get any of the loose stuff there or last bits off. And then I vacuumed the whole thing up and then went over the track with sandpaper to clean the rails off. I had 5 of these pockets for the 4 tracks that I had before, and 1 extra for other things. So I built 2 more. So I've got 6 pockets for actual cars, trains, and then one pocket for auxiliary things. And this is what it looks like now. I've got 4 trains lined up there, ready to go. That's all the St. cabooses I've got. Excuse me. The other tracks will hold shorter trains that would run over to Carlburg. So I could put 2 trains on each of those back tracks if I chose to, or if I get some more St. cabooses, I can add another one. And where all of this, these 4 trains come in handy, is we had days where we've had guys come down from the cities, or if anywhere anybody wants to come from, where they bring a couple of carloads of guys, and a couple of guys that come over, run my layout, they would leave, a couple more guys that come over, and then I wouldn't have to do any staging between times. I would just run another train out. So we actually could simulate 4 trains, 4 crews in one operating session by having these extra trains lined up there, instead of just having one and then having to rebuild it for the next operating session. So that's it, all done. That didn't take long, I'm sure.
All right, thanks, Clark. Yep. All right, Ron, are you ready to go?
Well, if you just wait just a second, I decided I need to put a couple more screens in.
All right.
So I'm building it as we.
Impressive.
It keeps him from having to watch what I'm doing.
I can't wait, or it can't be too long here. Everybody will leave and go home.
We're a
Oh,
patient
we can? We don't have to stay?
Well, we are recording it, of course, as always.
Oops.
One more slide and then I'll quit and I'll
All right.
start something. Okay. So I thought I would do the tunnel remake. And so you get some kind of idea what I did on that. And there'll be a couple of slides here that won't be perfect because I'm slapping them in a hurry.
Well, what it shows is that you can build a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah,
rather
well,
quickly.
If you got an Apple situation, why you could do some things with that that I think is easier than PowerPoint. All I got to do is find the.
Waiting for Ken's rebuttal.
Oh, I'm just sitting here thinking about it. If he had PowerPoint, he'd be showing it to us by now.
Yeah.
When you go to RPM meets, the only people that have trouble getting their stuff out for viewing are the people with the apples.
Oh, that's true, and I can appreciate that. I think I got it on the screen here. All right, let's see what happens. Now all I need to do is find the view. Somebody help me. How do I get rid of this at the side?
Enter full screen all the way down. You had it. Over where you were on view.
On view, enter full screen.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go. Okay. Got it. Well.
Oh, that didn't work.
Anyway, you can see. I don't know how big a screen you got there.
Yeah, it's good.
All right. So I decided I was going to rebuild the area by the tunnel, and it looked like this. And I painted all that, and I thought at the time, I did a pretty good job on that, a little darker back here behind the trees in front. And after all, I put the paper backdrop up after the layout was done. You need to do that first, but of course I didn't do that. So anyway, I used the red paper that the construction people use on the floor to keep from scratching floors and stuff, because that stuff is really tough. And then I painted it blue. All right, so you see what it was. So then, in order to do that, the LP operation quit. I had to tear all that out or not finish it. I'm starting to take all these trees out. This thing happens to be almost 40 inches behind the layout. That is a long reach, and you can't believe how much stuff got broke in the front while I'm doing this. I mean, it's a disaster. I'm working from this way out now. So the next thing I thought, well, okay, I wonder if I'll just take some pictures of some limestone and I'll just put the picture in there. So I put up a couple and I didn't think much of it. But I do have lots of pictures of limestone if anybody wants it for background. Anyway, that didn't work. So then I got to looking around and I said, okay, how about a tree or a hill with a lot of trees on it. And I decided I would put that in. So I did. But of course that gave me a new problem because now I got all of this area down under here to fill up because I didn't put this all the way down to the bottom. So now I got to figure out what I'm going to do there. So I made this little piece of ceiling tile limestone, and I'm pushing it back with a file just to see how it worked. Plus the fact I was concerned about whether I had enough clearance to get cars past there, because you'll notice it is really a little bit thicker than the tunnel portal. So it worked, and I was able to get cars by there without hitting anything. Unless I get some unusually large car, I think I'll be in good shape. And then I saw the thing that Jared had about making trees. So I decided that maybe I would make a tree too, because I had some of those sagebrush armatures. And then I got some of the, what do they call that tree? The
super tree.
Yeah, somebody help me there. Anyway, so I drilled holes in there with this super drill that we bought through eBay. Boy, does that work great. I just punched little holes right through there and pushed those things through. And then I also glued a few of these things on. Clark said that's too much work, but it really isn't as bad as what it looks. So I have this pan that I have all of this, all of my leaves and stuff in. So I spray it and then I go over there and sprinkle the leaves on. And this gets into the question of what is the best glue. I don't have a problem with hairspray because it is come on, help me here. It's
Lacquer.
thank you. It's lacquer. So it is a good glue. However, I thought, well, I'm going to use some matte media type spray and try that. So anyway, I sprayed that on first, and then I put this on, and the end tree looks like that. But I wondered when I was done if I had kind of made a mistake and the tree is kind of odd shape. But that's no problem because it's going to be behind anyway. You won't see that, but the next trees won't have quite that thing sticking out there. Although if you look at any real tree, they look, there's no uniform shape to any of them.
It looks like the utility company got it.
True. So, okay, so here after 4 weeks of working on this is what it looks like now. So I filled all this in with the limestone. I had a couple of holes right here. So I decided I would put some big vegetation in. The tree I made is in this area right here. This tree is gone. I'm cleaning this up now and I'm moving toward this area here, which got me into my problem with the oil jobber. And I had a question about, they said I should have a concrete pad for the truck to sit on. So of course I went ahead and started demolishing thing and put the concrete pad down. only to find out after I looked at all my pictures of the oil jobbers, I only had one that had a concrete pad. All the rest of them were just plain old gravel. So there is a little bit of plaster on top of this and a little bit of static grass. But this area right in here is part of that paper on the wall. So here's what it looks like today versus what it did look like.
Looks good.
So anybody got any questions about this?
You explained it quite nicely.
I really like the tree trunks that the sagebrush makes.
Mhm.
I think that part is really good. There is a question of how best to glue those super trees on. So that being the end of that, do we have enough time?
Absolutely. Yeah, we got plenty of time. Yeah,
I'll show
very
you I'll show
big
you the next-
improvement there. That looks great.
I'll show you the next one that I've been working on. All right, I got to get it up first. I was kind of hoping that Doug would be on the line, but he is not. Because this really goes back to how it all started with them. Let's see now. Okay, that come up okay?
Yeah,
Perfect.
Okay, Dave Nelson sent these pictures. And I decided that I would just turn them into black and white, a little bit easier to see, I thought. But it started a conversation between Mike and Doug about corrugated siding. And I didn't know anything about that really, other than I've seen all kinds of it. I still didn't know much about it. So Mike, that was what he did for that's how he made his living. And Doug, his point of all this is that anybody that installs corrugated siding, it's straight in a line. It isn't haphazard. So that's what started the conversation on this. Now, I'm going to send this out maybe tomorrow or the next day so you can sit and read this a little longer if you want to. But what it amounts to up here is Doug is telling you that on the prototype, everything is straight in line. It's not haphazard. And Dave is saying, yeah, you're exactly right. And that he'd worked in the business for 35 years. And then we got into the different sizes of corrugation and so forth, which of course I had never thought about. And then I found this on the internet. There's several things here. You notice over here, it shows you the depth of the valley. But, that's something in HO, I don't think any of us can even be concerned about because we'll never really be able to measure that. What we can measure is the width of the high spots. So Mike said that 2.67 was the type that he uses most often. What I didn't ask him is this is the type that's on most of our elevators in 1959, which may be that isn't quite the right size. I'm not sure. Anyway, looking at this, down here, it shows you the different sizes and also the different lengths that you can get the corrugated sheet in. And then I went to Evergreen and I looked at every one of their different products for corrugated siding. And Jan did a little more calculation for me and found out that the one closest to what we would be using in HO would be the 4525. I think a lot of us probably do the 4526, which I think most of my stuff that I did which is probably it's probably too wide. The other thing is if you don't know this, they can nail it and screw the corrugated siding to the wood building. And today, I don't know if this is always true, but today, the nails and screws come with rubber washers. And they prefer screws because of course it'll hold it tight. You can in fact use nails, and if the corrugation siding is too thick, you got to use drill holes in it. Otherwise, some nails actually will penetrate thin siding. So I thought I'd take some pictures of some elevators here, and you can see that whoever put the siding on this elevator did a great job. I mean, everything is in line, really looks nice. I think most of the stuff that we get from Europe is a little more haphazard than what I find the Walthers buildings are. So then there was a question of what these things were here. And Mike thinks that those are in fact bolts that go all the way through the building to hold the building so it doesn't bulge. But I want you to notice all of the different nails that they put in here. These different nail lines on here. Each one of these sheets have 3 nails or 3 screws, whatever they have, you can't tell. And down in the bottom, there's a whole bunch of, looks like about 6 at the bottom. These are long panels compared to the what was on the other. Let me see if we can see both of those. I'll go back to the beginning. See how much difference the panels are on the building on the right versus the one on the left. Going to catch up. So then I found one that had the old wood anchors there for the bolts to hold it in so that it would keep from bulging out. And lots of elevators had those. So then I just added a few pictures of this of elevators and so forth. This one being in Blairstown, Iowa. And again, whoever did it, they did a great job. Everything's in line. Then I got into the weathering of it. I think more of the ones that I see today, old ones, are brown rust. I'm not sure what the one on the right is that made it blue. I don't think it's the photograph. I think that something else is causing the rust on there.
Almost like they sprayed it with car cement.
Yeah, it could be. I thought this one was a pretty interesting rust. Notice how, and we don't always do this, but right underneath the eaves here, that stuff looks pretty good there because it doesn't catch the weather. And from that point on down, why the weathering becomes far more vivid. So this is in Indiana, and I have no idea why anybody would put corrugated siding on sideways. But that's what that is. The one on the right, they have done some patching on it. And so you can see these things are also bending up. So if you have an old one and you want to do some distressing on it, why you really got to try to figure out how to get your knife underneath the plastic and pull it up a little bit. You can buy it today in different colors. I'm not sure if these were bought that way or if they were painted. They could have been, you know, they do all kinds of finishing today on metals. But I don't think we see a lot of that type of elevator today. Most of them are either big round bends or concrete. I should say, has anybody got any questions about corrugated siding? I guess not. So everybody now can put their siding on correctly on their buildings they're going to build.
I'm gonna do it to my house.
Ron, I remember back in the late 60s, I guess, when it was corrugated siding was applied to a roof of a building I was on, had kind of a lead washer that went around the head of the galvanized nail, and that would kind of flatten out and seal up the nail hole.
Yeah, well, these, I've seen this stuff with the, looked like rubber washers around them. And apparently that's been around a long time. Because it'll pull through and rust out. Mike also said the reason they rust is when you drive a nail in, you take a little bit of the paint off. So that's why the nails tend to rust.
Off too, out of the hole.
Also, Campbell's makes a corrugated siding out of a heavier foil, which if you wanted to do some bent up sheets, you could do it pretty easily with that.
But remember, it should all be straight at the bottom edge. Don't have a random, don't put it on randomly.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Clark. And thanks everybody for coming. Rod, we're thinking next week, maybe we do the judging program that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Are you up for that?
I'll try to do that.
Okay.
Can you or Ron send me the list of photographs that you've got somewhere?
Ron, do you have that?
I have a link if it still works, but it does not. They are not individual photographs. All I can do is just click on it and that's it. I can't produce the photos that I know of.
All right, I have that link and I can probably put those photos into a PowerPoint. So I'll do that this week.
Okay, that would help a lot. I want to keep this very abstract. I don't want to develop any critique of any specific model or something. So
Sure.
there was a lot of controversy that developed during the judging or pre-judging. So I'd like to review that because it's relevant to the future of the hobby.
Yeah, I'll bet. All right, very good. Well, that's what we'll do next week. And everybody have a great Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on Tuesday.
Okay, have a good week.
Bye-bye.